Hey everyone, welcome to this crash course lecture on using your command line. Before we install anything including Python, it's actually really important to have a very quick overview of how to work your command line, and the command line basically allows you to programmatically move through your computer's directories. That way you can run Python scripts at your command line. We are going to cover this short lecture is how to find your current directory, how to lost all the files in that directory, how to change the directory, and how to clear the command line screen. Something you need to understand though is that the commands are going to be slightly different depending on what your operating system is. So for Mac OS and Linux users, go ahead and jump to this time in the video order to go through your instructions. If you're a Windows user, go ahead and jump to this timestamp at the video to jump to your specific instructions. And then once you've gone through your command line crash course, go ahead and move on to the next lecture. Again, this is just because the commands are slightly different for Linux and Mac OS users versus Windows users. Okay. Go ahead and jump to the correct timestamp and we'll meet back there. Alright, so let's go over the Windows command line operations at your computer. To find the command prompt, all you need to do is search for the term CMD. And we should be able to find command prompt as the best match if command prompt doesn't show up when you search CMD. Instead, just search for the whole phrase command prompt and then you should see command prompt. Desktop app. Once you've opened up your command prompt, you should see something that looks like this. Let's start off by finding out where are we currently located. Basically, what's our current directory? I can use the command line to interact on my computer, but to actually those interactions, I need to know where I am at on my computer. You can think of this as basically programmatically moving around through files and folders on your computer. You can type out cd enter, hit enter, and this will report back your current directory. Now you'll notice the command prompt actually basically gives you the file path over you already are. But sometimes its file path is really long or you're dealing with more complex things like virtual environments or installations. It's always a good idea to check your current directory by typing cd. Sometimes things like the Anaconda prompt will have other directories in parentheses. You can always confirm your current directory by typing a cd, hit enter. And that reports back where you are. So I can see right now I'm under this particular user's folder. If I wanted to figure out where all the files and folders located in my current directory were, or I can type dir. Hit enter. And that reports back the contents of my directory. I can see here that there is a desktop document download as well as some hidden files donated by starting with a dot. But basically this is everything that's in this folder. See users, Marcy, I can scroll down, see CSV files, pictures. Now let's imagine I wanted to actually move into one of these subfolders. What I can do is type cd and then the name of that folder. For example, if I wanted to change directories to my desktop location, I could type cd change directories space. The desktop, hit enter, and now I'm at my desktop and I can type cd to confirm that I'm at my desktop. If I want to go back up that directory, all I need to do is cd the space dot or period, hit enter, and I've moved back up a directory. Now you don't actually need to type in the entire file path. If you're moving around, what you can say cd begin typing such as the letter D, then hit tab. You should be able to see auto-complete for you. So as I hit tab, I get the various option of everything that starts with a capital D, so I can go to documents, hit entire, and then if I wanted to see all my documents I can type dir. Now we can see all our documents here. Again, if I want to go back, cd space dot, and if I ever want to clear my entire command line screen I can type cls and I've cleared the entire screen. Alright, that's really all the basics we need to know for right now. Just to review, cd for current directory, dir. To list everything in my directory, cd and then the of the folder that I want to jump to. For example, if I want to go to download, cd downloads, again you can hit tab to autocomplete. And if we ever want to jump back up, cd dot. But if we ever want to clear the screen, it's cls. That's the basics you need to know. We'll see you at the next lesson where we'll discuss how to install Python. Alright, so let's go over the Mac OS and Linux command line operations, and your command line in Mac OS and Linux is known as a terminal. So these commands work on both of these operating systems the exact same way. Let's get started. To begin working of the command line on a Linux or Mac OS, you first need to open up your terminal, search your computer for terminal, your Mac OS or Linux. It's called the same thing, and then open up your terminal. You should eventually get something that looks like this. The colors or fonts may be slightly different, but the basic idea is the same. The terminal gives you a command line interface, and the command line interface allows you to move around different files or folders on your computer, and with some more advanced functionality, you can also make new directories or remove directories. We don't really need to know that right now. All we really need to know is how to understand what our current working directory is, change directories and just move around. This basically allows us to move around the computer at the command line. The first thing we want to know is where we're currently located. To know that, type pwd, hit enter, and this will print your working directory. This is where you're currently located at the command line. If you want to understand what files and folders are located at your current location, type ls and then hit enter, or you should see a list of different files and folders at your current directory. If you ever want to move to one of those files or folders, where you can do is type cd and then whichever file or folder you want to go. However, it should be in the list that was just printed. For example, let's move to our desktop, so I will come back down here and type cd desktop, hit enter. And now if I type pwd, when I hit enter again, I'm now at my desktop. If you ever want to clear your screen, just type clear, hit enter, and now you've been able to clear your command. If you ever want to go back up a victory, it should cd space ... hit enter. And now we're back up directory, which I can confirm by typing pwd. That's really all we need to know. As far as the commands are concerned, let's have a quick review to print your working directory. It's pwd, and this reports back we are currently located. If you want to know the files and folders at your current location, type ls and this will list all the files and folders. If you want to clear your command screen, type clear, hit enter. This will clear your command line. If you to change directory to a subfolder, type cd, and then you can even begin typing the names such as desktop. And if I just hit desk and then hit tab, it should auto-complete. If you do not get an auto-complete by hitting tab, that's probably a good indicator that it's not a direct subfolder of your current directory, but then you can type cd, the name of the subfolder or subdirectory, and then we can see now we're located here by typing pwd. If you ever want to go back up, type cd space ... OK. That's the basics of moving around through the command line. We're going to be using that later on when we run Python scripts at the command line. We'll see you at the next lesson. Welcome back everyone. In this lecture, we're going to briefly discuss Python and its advantages and overview, and then we'll show how to install Python on your computer. Now, Python was developed in 1991 by Van Rossum, and it's quickly become one of the most popular programming languages in the world. And this is because it has many advantages. The main advantage is that Python has is that developers can learn it quickly, and this is because it typically involves a lot less code than other languages, and the syntax is a lot easier to read. And this is because, as you'll learn later on, is that Python makes use of white space. That is, uses indentation instead of curly braces, and that allows users to really learn it a lot faster than they would other programming languages. And because of that, Python is now utilized by pretty much every major technology company in some capacity. And what's also really nice about Python is that there's a huge amount of additional open source libraries. Then that's basically to say, if you want to perform a particular task in Python, maybe you want to create PDFs in Python, to send an email in Python, work with images, do data analysis, create a website. There's additional frameworks and libraries available to you that are open source that people have created that allow you to do those things. Python itself has a lot of stuff built in. It's known as a programming language that has batteries included. And that's because there's a lot of standard libraries that are included in Python that allow you to already do a lot of stuff. That is to say, for instance, it has a math library that has a lot of capability, but there are additional libraries in case you need to focus more on a particular niche topic, such as numerical computing. There's a library called NumPy for that. So to actually look at all these advantages and start learning Python, we need to install it, and we're going to install Python using the free Anaconda distribution. And the reason for that is that this distribution includes Python as well as many other useful libraries, including Jupyter, which is the notebook system we're going to be using throughout the course. Later on, we'll use things like text editors to write Python scripts. But when we first start learning, Jupyter is a great choice. Now, Anaconda, another reason we choose it is that it can be easily installed onto any major operating system, such as Windows, Mac OS or Linux. One thing I do want to point out before we jump to the actual Anaconda download website is that because Anaconda includes a lot of these other libraries, there's also a miniature version Anaconda, which is Miniconda, which is a lot smaller suffocation, or have enough room on your computer for the full Anaconda and a constellation. There's also Miniconda, and we'll be showing you how to work with that right after we show you the main Anaconda setup. So it is recommended that you use the full Anaconda, but just in case you don't have fast internet connection or you don't have enough space on your computer, you can always use Miniconda. So let's begin the installation process by going to www.anaconda.com/downloads. I'll see you there. So anaconda.com/download, the website will look something similar to this. It may be updated from time to time as far as the look and feel, but in general, it will have the download links for the various installer for the Windows, Mac OS and Linux systems. And if you click on one of these, you'll be brought down to the actual download links for the graphical installers or the command line installers. By the time you view this page, it's most likely that 3.7 or 3.8 or even 3.9 has been released. So keep that in mind. Any version of Python 3 should be fine for our use cases. Now if you're on Windows, you'll go ahead and download the graphical installer 64-bit or 32-bit depending on your computer. Most newer computer are going to be 64-bit, and if you have any questions on that you can click to learn more. But basically this is just a graphical installer so wizard that's going to walk you step by step on the installation process. So for Windows users, click on this graphical installer, download it. If you're in Mac OS, click on this graphical installer and download it, and then if you're on Linux, you'll be clicking on this installer and downloading it. Keep in mind that Linux users have a command line installer, and you'll have to type command that we'll show you in just a second. Once you've decided which version you're going to download, scroll down a little bit and click here where it says how to install Anaconda and depending on what operating system you're currently on. It will take you to one of these 3 pages here. You can see installing on Windows, and it has step-by-step instructions for installing. The graphical installers are really quite straightforward. You just select the defaults, hit next and follow along with these step-by-step instruction. You don't need to worry about number 2 as far as verifying the data integrity. If you're on a Mac OS, it's basically the same thing. If you click on that link on how to install, it will guide you through the graphical installation process for Mac OS. Again, step-by-step process. Pretty straightforward. Just hit continue on all the screens. If you're on Linux, it's going to be slightly different. What you need to do is you'll be downloading a .sh file, and then at your command line or a terminal, you'll be running the following command: bash, and then right here download Anaconda 3 and whatever version you happen to clicking on. Basically just copy and paste this command into your terminal. A quick note for Windows users, and this is a pretty important one. You'll eventually have a screen that looks like this saying advanced installation option, and you can choose whether or not you want to add Anaconda to your path environment variable, and call themselves to recommends to not add Anaconda as a path environment variable. Since this can interface with other softwares, typically what it's going to interface with is previous downloads of Python. However, since this is probably your first download of Python, we actually highly recommend that you do add Anaconda to your path environment variable. This will allow you to call Anaconda-specific commands directly at your command line. Again, for Windows users, we do recommend that you add Anaconda to your path environment variable. When you click on it, you'll notice that it says not recommended. It'll highlight in red. Go ahead and click on it anyways and then hit install. Now, as we previously mentioned, these graphical installation files include Anaconda, Python and many other libraries in this distribution, so you'll notice that it's actually quite a large file. About half of gigabyte depending on your internet connection or the space available on your computer. You may not want to actually install all these libraries. Instead, you probably just want the basics of Python for that use case. You can look for anaconda.io/miniconda-html or just Google search for Miniconda, and it will take you to the Miniconda links for the installers, and it's basically the exact same thing, except it's much smaller file, and it does include variety of the libraries which you don't really need to worry about. So there's one for Windows, Mac OS and Linux. So if you're interested in a much smaller file download, you can use those installers as well. However, we do recommend that if you have the bandwidth and the space that you just download the full Anaconda installation. Once you've successfully downloaded and gone through the installation steps for Anaconda, you should be able to search your computer for Anaconda Navigator. This is a desktop app that allows you to quickly launch Jupyter notebooks. So go ahead and confirm your installation by clicking on Anaconda Navigator. It will load up and eventually you'll see something that looks like this with little quick dashboards that allow you to launch different development environments. There's the Jupyter Notebook, our main development environment. There's the Qt consoles. Spyder, another integrated development environment. There's also other things like Glue, Jupyter Lab, and even ArtStar Studio if you decide to later on learn, or you can install as well as a click of a button. So we're going to be using the Anaconda Navigator to quickly launch Jupyter Notebooks. So now that we have Anaconda and Python installed on your computer, you should be able to open up to Anaconda Navigator. Up next we'll discuss how to actually run Python code, either as a script at the command line or using Jupyter Notebook. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next lesson, and don't forget to subscribe and like the video.